vinyl community, welcome to another video with the Record Spinner. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a vinyl haul showcasing all of the records I've acquired within the months of May and June of this year, 2019. Before we get into the haul, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping with you guys. It's been a while since I've done that, and lately I feel like it's been upload after live stream after upload, and I want to take this time to touch base with all of my fellow viewers and subscribers out there. Speaking of subscribers, I should say first that on Saturday, June 22nd at midnight, I noticed that I had hit my 600 subscriber mark, and I want to say many thanks to all of my subscribers out there that support me in this channel. It truly does mean a lot, and just to think that out of all of the various vinyl YouTubers out there, you guys take the time out of your day to watch my videos when I upload them on Fridays and leave comments and interact with me. It really does mean a lot. And, there are other channels out there that are doing fantastic things, whether it's Richard Riley, Melinda Murphy. There's also some of the bigger channels such as Vinyl Rewind and Too Many Records. Myself, I'm just a 21-year-old kid who sits on their bedroom floor, films videos with his phone and laptop, and just, showcases, his collection, is very enthusiastic about music and pressings and sound and just the hobby itself. It honestly is really cool, and it's thanks to you guys out there that I keep on doing what I do. I don't care if I had 200 subscribers or less, I would still keep making videos. So thank you very much. Seems like every 100 interval is the next big goal. So I just hit 600. Now the next goal is 700. I would like to perhaps hit that mark sometime maybe in the fall, October, November-ish. Let's see if we can get there. And let's see if perhaps at some point down the road in the future I get to 1,000. We shall see. And if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please go ahead and do. And also you can do the bell thing. I know YouTube really pushes that, but you can go ahead and click on that so you get notified. But in regards to the channel, I have also been thinking about how I could quote-unquote expand the empire. As of right now, YouTube is my main outlet, and I have some social media profiles on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Links are in the description box below or wherever you see it. I am thinking of perhaps starting a website and a blog where I am able to review vinyl-related products, whether it's speakers, cartridges, turntables, and whatnot. Also vinyl maintenance products such as various types of cleaners and whatnot. And also, most importantly, reviewing vinyl releases, whether it's new stuff, archival releases, box sets, all kinds of things. I don't know exactly what strings I would have to pull to make that happen, but to be honest, as very niche as it sounds, it would be a very fun career path for me because I'm really starting to think of what I want to do with my future. I'm still attending school. I'm studying music business with a Berklee College of Music's online program. They're based up in Boston. Very prestigious school and great. So I'm really trying to narrow down what my options are. And considering that I find so much joy making these videos and also collecting records in general, the idea popped in my head of maybe a career could come out of this. So we shall see. Nothing has been set in stone, but it's just an idea. If you think it's a good idea, drop a comment down below. Let me know. Up next, I want to showcase something pretty cool that I picked up. This was in the beginning of June. This is a little art print that was done by a company called The Salton Sea. And it's simply just like a vinyl kind of decoration thing. There's like a vinyl record there, and it says the LP, and it states when it was started back in 1948, and it has all the dimensions and the weights, and it kind of has a little bit of a history write-up on the bottom there, just talking about the format and how it's accessed and the significance behind it. I just thought it was a rather cool thing to have, so I'm really glad that I have this, and when the opportunity comes that I get to have a legit vinyl, room and do a room tour, I'll definitely put this up as a decoration for sure. And up next is something that's not really vinyl related, but I think it's cool just simply showing off. I think it's safe to say that 99.9% of my viewers out there listen to this band, so it seems justifiable showing it. And also, it's cool. You guys will like it. Look at what I got my hands on recently. The Sgt. Pepper's Super Deluxe box. This dropped in price on Amazon to around $88, and I purchased it coincidentally on the day of its anniversary on June 1st. You get the Giles Martin stereo remix, which is fantastic. You get the 2 discs of session outtakes, the mono mix. You get a 5.1 mix on DVD and Blu-ray, along with music videos and a documentary, hardbound book, replica memorabilia, all kinds of great Beatle goodness. So I figured I'd show this off. This is a really, really cool thing to have. Gotta get the White Album set now. You gotta round things off. Alright, so enough of the housekeeping. Let's jump into the haul. Now, this haul is done in the same style as I've done my other hauls, where I film small clips of the records as I have acquired them, and I just piece them all together into one large video. It's kind of tiring pulling everything from the cubes and sequencing everything and filming a big long video. It kind of gets a little exhausting at the end. So I figured just doing these small clips and piecing it together would be an easier thing. I did not suspect that this haul would be as long as it turned out to be. So if you got to take a break and watch the second half on a different day, I totally understand. These things get quite long indeed. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the latest finds. Alright, so like I mentioned in my Record Store Day 2019 haul video, I was expecting the Jethro Tull 10-inch, and I just received it today. This is called North Sea Oil. This is an EP to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the album Stormwatcher, which is indeed this year, 2019. It came out 40 years ago. And Steven Wilson is remixing the album once again, and they're doing another deluxe set with the album remixed in stereo and 5.1 and all kinds of other goodies and such. So they did this little 10-inch to kind of coincide with that. So on this we get the song North Sea Oil, which is off of the album, and then we get things like Warm, Sporin', Home. We have an early version of the track Dun Ringil, Elegy, and then we also have King Henry's Madrigal. So it's rather interesting stuff from that period. There's Ian Anderson on the front there, as well as the backside. Take out the vinyl. Comes in a nice poly-lined 10-inch sleeve, which is nice to have. And then we have the vinyl itself, and this is on the blue and white chrysalis label. This was pressed over at Optimal. I'm sure this is going to sound absolutely wonderful. I've been very impressed with all of the newer Jethro Tull product that has come out recently. The reissues are great, and the Record Store Day stuff is great. So I'm very, very happy to finally have this. And then up next was a Amazon price drop. This dropped to around $14, and I just could not say no to it. This is Linkin Park's Meteora. This is the band's second album. More or less the same kind of deal with Hybrid Theory. It's the rap rock sound that they had established. You get tracks like Somewhere I Belong, Breaking the Habit, Numb, that's the big one on here, Faint, Line From You, just great early Linkin Park stuff. Comes with a nice gatefold here with all the graffiti style artwork. We do have 2 LPs. I'm not going to take them out. They're all on black vinyl, and they do come with custom center labels for all of the sides, so there's no repetition, which is pretty cool. And then we also get a insert in here as well. So you have the credits on this side, as well as all the lyrics here on this side. Kind of an interesting start to this haul, how very contrasting it is with Jethro Tull going into Linkin Park. But that just kind of goes to show how all over the place I am when it comes to my music tastes. So, yeah, very, very happy to have this album in my collection. Linkin Park's Meteora.
Alright, now here's a little something from Record Store Day 2015. I decided to pull the trigger on this, and I was able to find it for a good deal because I was only finding overseas sellers selling this on Discogs, and then there was only maybe a handful of American sellers. And this one in particular was one on the lower end of the price spectrum. I think I ended up paying about $10 for this, which is pretty much what I would pay for a 12-inch single release. This is Courtney Barnett's Kim's Caravan. Kim's Caravan is a song which is on her first album, which is entitled Sometimes I Sit and Think and Sometimes I Just Sit. So that takes up the A side of this 12-inch single. And then the B side is a cover of the John Cale song Close Watch. This does feature artwork designed by Courtney herself. And the sleeve itself comes, it's like not canvas quality, but it's almost like an art print kind of quality. It feels really nice. Interestingly though, because when I purchased this, it came sealed. But upon opening it up, there was no protection for the record. So I thought that was kind of off. So I'm going to have to give this a good clean and brush and then store it in a nice MoFi sleeve before doing anything else. So there you have basic white written labels there. Looks really great. Seems like, I don't know if it's every year, but mostly during every album cycle, Courtney will do a 12-inch release for Record Store Day, cut at 45 RPM. They sound fantastic, and they're really fun to collect. And this is another great addition to my Courtney Barnett collection, Kim's Caravan. Alright, so I think my new flavor of the month, I guess you could say, is getting leftover Record Store Day titles. It just seems as if now I'm just kind of combing backwards and seeing what's out there that's still available for a decent price and adding it to my collection. These two releases came out as part of 2018's Record Store Day. When it first came around, these releases did not jump out at me at first. And I guess as time has gone on, your tastes as a collector change, and you start saying to yourself, oh, why did I say no to that? I would really want that in my collection. Or you just love the artist enough that you would just buy it because the name is on there. But then again, I mean, the product is cool. But that's exactly why I picked up these two releases, both by the same artist. This is the David Bowie Let's Dance 12-inch. This includes a demo version of the song Let's Dance along with a live version, which was from the Serious Moonlight concert video. The demo got a digital release in late 2017, but it was like a shorter version, and then they included the full-length version on this 12-inch. Includes a variation of the Let's Dance artwork. Very nice and vibrant with a nice glossy sleeve. Comes in a polyline inner sleeve here. And then we have the record itself, which comes on the modified EMI Bowie label, which looks absolutely wonderful. Pressed very well too over at Optimal. So good stuff. Really happy to have this. And then we are on to the other release, and this is perhaps my favorite out of the two. This is Bowie Now. So this is a compilation which came out only in America as a promo release back in 1977. This features tracks from Low and Heroes. So this was kind of an attempt to kind of just showcase the new sound that Bowie was going for. Not essentially a greatest hits kind of release or a best of, but you do get some tracks that are, you know, classics from those two. You get Speed of Life, V2 Schneider, Breaking Glass, Weeping Wall, Blackout. Really great stuff. The backside has some press quotations from Alan Jones and Jim Miller. And then we have like a track-by-track breakdown there. This does come with an exclusive insert, which was not featured in the original, so it kind of adds a little bit of uniqueness to this particular version. There's Bowie there. And then we have all the credits on this side. And I'm going to be very careful getting this out because I don't want to scuff it. Comes on really nice white vinyl on a nice white label. And if you know your vinyl pretty well in terms of how it was handled back then in the 70s, promo copies would come pressed on like white labels, whether it was like radio stations or whether it might be critics and such. And usually those promo pressings tend to be a little bit better sonically than the mainstream market pressings, because the promo stuff was some of the first records to come off of the pressing plant when they were pressing up all the records. So, funny enough, since I showcased these two, this is 2/3 of what came out in terms of Bowie releases for Record Store Day 2018. The only thing that's missing is the Welcome to the Blackout live album from Earl's Court. The only reason why I don't have that right now is simply because I already have the updated stage album, and it's essentially the same track list. I have not listened to any live clips from the Earl's Court show. From what I've heard, it's very, very good. But perhaps sometime down the road, if it is still available, which as of right now it still is for a decent price, I might go over the edge and snag it. But until then, got my hands on 2/3 of the Bowie releases from Record Store Day 2018.
Alright, so it is the beginning of the month, and if you've been watching this channel for a while, that usually means it is the Discover Cashback Bonus Purchase, which is redeemable through Amazon. At the time when I decided to pick this record up, I was listening to a Pink Floyd bootleg that I had, and it was primarily consisting of demos from the Wall period. And hearing those demos, and let alone hearing some of those tracks for the first time in a long time, it kind of rejuvenated something in me, because as crazy as I am about the pre-Dark Side Floyd stuff, there is truly an amazing body of work within the albums of Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, Animals, The Wall, and so on and so forth. So I was really starting to feel something while listening to those demos, and I just recently added this particular record to my Amazon list. I was aware of it for the longest time. I remember seeing it when it first came out at the FYE that I would soon work at. And I didn't think to pick it up. I bought the CD version and the DVD of it. So you can perhaps speculate what this could be. It is Roger Waters' The Wall. This is the soundtrack companion piece to go with the film that Roger did of The Wall, which is based around his adaptation of it that he was doing on stage for a couple years. It is a fantastic film. I really recommend you guys check it out. Not so much like a in-depth, look into how the concept came to be and this and that. It's not, directing stuff from the Floyd history. There's a whole narrative to this film. You really need to see it for yourself. Comes in a very nice triple gatefold sleeve here, which has the stage all flared up during In the Flesh. And we also have a booklet here, which has all kinds of photos taken from the show. Really beautiful shots. Excellent, excellent stuff. Now, all three LPs come in these printed inner sleeves. I'll showcase one for an example. There's some notable people here printed on the sleeves with their names, when they were born and when they had passed away. Some notable people that occurred during world history and such, which is kind of a thing that Roger touches up on within the film as well as just in general if you follow him on social media. Comes on a nice heavyweight black vinyl, and here is the center label, which has the face there. Very, very nice. Pressed very well as well. This was pressed over at MPO in France, and this was mastered by a fella by the name of Baza over at Alchemy Mastering. I have a couple of records that were done over at Alchemy. Actually, now that we're kind of getting on the Floyd stuff, I know that the David Gilmour Pompeii release was done at Alchemy, along with Roger's recent solo album. Both of those sound fantastic. So with that in mind, I'm sure that this is going to be an absolutely wonderful listening experience. Roger Waters, The Wall. Alright, so this package here that I received from Amazon today is one that I believe came a day earlier than its expected US release date. I don't know if that does the biggest scrap of difference, because I believe this is already out over in Europe. So it kind of took its time to get here to the US, but regardless, it's very nice to have. It is King Crimson's Beat. This is the newest 200-gram vinyl reissue to come out from the band's catalog, along with one other album that I am going to be receiving this month, and I'll showcase it later on in this haul. Now look, I'm a huge King Crimson fan, but I am starting to get more and more into the other periods aside from the classic like 69 to 74 period. So things like Discipline were a bit of a blind listen at first when I first got that album, and I really grew to love it, and I understood, you know, its major appeal, even though it does not have that distinctive Crimson sound from prior. So like Discipline, this one is going to be a blind listen. I've never listened to this album before, but I do want it in my collection, kind of for the sake of being a somewhat completist. But then again, it's also King Crimson, and like I said, I was pleased with Discipline, and I understand that this album, along with Three of a Perfect Pair, are kind of among those lines, so I'm sure I'll be in for some surprises with this. Does come with a nice insert here with all the lyrics, and then you also have a very intriguing printed polyline sleeve, so you have some of the newer stuff that Crimson's been doing lately, and then you also have the classic catalog along with the various formats it's available in. Comes on very, very nice 200-gram vinyl with a nice blue label there. Looks absolutely tremendous. And like I said, very happy to own this album, and I'm excited to give it a spin for the first time and see what my opinions are of it. Absolutely good stuff. King Crimson's Beats. Alright, so this next record I'm going to show you guys is one that I picked up at the Books A Million location that I used to work at. The girlfriend and I were in the area mainly to film the most recent record store vlog that is on the channel, where I did some more trades. And this particular band I had been listening to quite a lot lately, and their music is really starting to catch on to me. And when I saw this, because I think I saw this the last time that I was at the bookstore, this is right around Easter time. So it was kind of one of those sight unseen things, because like I've been really listening to them, and it's just kind of there to sort of capitalize on me getting into them more and such. I'll just say this, AC/DC is now no longer the first band that is represented in my collection if you were to look at everything alphabetically starting from the top. That spot is now taken by ABBA. I don't know if you can call ABBA a guilty pleasure group. I mean, if you look at the main stuff that I listen to, and if you're a longtime viewer, I do love me some prog. I love me some Kiss. I love some Sabbath, Zeppelin, Genesis, Crimson, all that stuff. And then you see this and you're like, where did it go wrong? Honestly, though, the tracks are absolutely amazing. Benny and Bjorn were amazing songwriters. This one right here, this is ABBA Gold, the greatest hits. It's the most wisest place to start. You get all the standouts. You get Dancing Queen, Take a Chance on Me, Winner Takes It All, Money, 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 which is one of my favorites. Voulez-Vous, Gimme, 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 Does Your Mother Know? That's a fun one. Waterloo, of course, that's the big breakout hit for them. 2 LP sets. Comes with 2 nice printed inner sleeves here, which has some lovely photos. Also has a little bit of history talking about the band. Looks absolutely great. I'll showcase one of the LPs, because I don't want to scuff them up, and I will be swapping them out for anti-static sleeves. Comes on the red Polydor label there. Looks absolutely wonderful. And who knows, I figured this would be the best place to start. And of course,
I've been listening to this compilation a lot at work. We got a used CD copy and we've been listening to that. And who knows, if I keep listening to this, it might lead to me actually going ahead and picking up actual albums of theirs. So we'll see what the future holds. ABBA Gold Greatest Hits. Alright, so this next record I'm going to show you guys is one that was a major surprise. This is one that I've been eyeing for quite some time, and it was one of those situations where, I mean, yes, it is still pretty much available, but in most cases I would see available from like overseas sellers on Discogs, or American sellers were selling it rather high, but there was a company that has a eBay page, and they had a couple left in their warehouse, and I decided to pull the trigger while the moment was hot. And this is a really, really unique release. This is Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Mari Soul. So this is a record which has 2 tracks. You have Tarkus and Pictures at an Exhibition, which were recorded from the band's set at the Mari Soul festival that was held in Puerto Rico back in April of 1972. They recorded the whole set, and it is out there on CD. It's a very excellent soundboard recording. But what they did with this unique release, which came out as part of Record Store Day 2011, so this is going back some time, they took those 2 tracks, put it on one LP, and they kind of designed it in like a mock kind of bootleg style release. So you know how like bootlegs usually came with like a colored sheet, which was like the cover, and then it came in like a generic white sleeve. It kind of replicates that. And I don't know if you can really see that, but that is indeed limited to 1,500 copies, and I just happen to have copy number 405. The sheet is being held together with like a little gluey plastic kind of piece. I want to try to find a way to keep this secure and on, because I don't want it to come off. Comes in a die cut sleeve as well. And then we have the record here. It's basic black vinyl. I don't want to take it out and potentially scuff it because it is in paper. But we have the ELP logo on one side, and then we just have like a basic white center label on the other. So it definitely does give off the kind of bootleg kind of vibe, because, I mean, if you look back in the day, some of those like early, bootlegs from the 70s just kind of had either weird kind of labels with different like song titles that bear no relation to the songs on the record. Like if you know your bootlegs, you would get exactly what I'm talking about. But this is a highly wanted release for my collection, and I am very glad to finally have it. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Mari Soul.
So along with getting Record Store Day leftovers and just seeing what's there still available and that's of interest for me, I'm also now starting to get my hands on some records that are kind of becoming hard to come by. Not so much limited edition type stuff, but it's kind of a thing of they pressed up X amount when it first came out, and that's kind of it, and then they kind of just go out of print pretty much unknowingly to people. So with this particular record, I came very, very close to snagging it from a reputable retailer. They had it listed at the retail price, which I did not want to pay because it is a 2 LP record, and it's valuable, I guess you could say. But literally, as I was about to pull the trigger on it, a Discogs seller put it up on his profile for like $23, and I'm like, absolutely, you can't turn that down, and I'm very glad to have this in my collection. So this is The Doors, LA Woman, The Workshop Sessions. So this goes back to around 2011, 2012. It's the 40th anniversary of the album, and the album is remastered on CD, and then they also include a bonus disc of different alternate versions and alternate takes and some stuff that wasn't released on the album. And this is essentially a vinyl version of that. The 2 tracks that you get that were not on the album were the jams She Smells So Nice, and then there's a cover of Rock Me. Comes in like a sort of kind of like a rough draft version of the iconic cover. And then here's the back side. Looks really, really nice. Comes in a nice gatefold sleeve, so you have like the original like inner sleeve artwork for the album. And then there's a little bit here written by Bruce Botnick, who was the Doors' longtime engineer, and then he ultimately produced LA Woman after Paul Rothchild made his exit. Comes on nice heavyweight 180 gram vinyl with the classic Butterfly Electra label. Pressed at RTI and mastered by Bernie Grundman, so I'm sure this is going to be an absolutely pleasant listen. And then I'll show you the really, really neat thing, because this is indeed a 3-sided album. So we have the 2 unreleased tracks here on this side, but then on the other side, we have a very nice etching. Now this etching includes all of the lyrics to the album. Looks absolutely wonderful. Very in-depth. I'm sure this was a digital process because, I mean, this is really, really intricate. Looks absolutely fantastic. And this is a record that I am very, very proud to own. Back then, like, when I started collecting, I probably would have said, like, just get me the original album itself and that's it. But then as you become more of a collector and what you're looking for kind of changes, you start to feel the need to have everything, I guess, more or less. And I'm very, very glad to have this in my collection. Doors, LA Woman Workshop Sessions.
No, I did not cut my hair. It is simply tied back. So at my store, we are running a sale with our Red Hot deals, which is kind of like stuff that we're no longer going to be getting in, so we're just trying to push it out. It is 50% off the Red Hot deals. So after combing through it so many times and picking up so many like Red Hot deal titles that I knew were essential that I wanted, I decided to take one more gander and see if there was really anything else that I had missed out on or anything that I was willing to kind of give a chance on. So this particular record is one that we actually got in recently, and literally the only reason why we got it in was because of the movie that is pretty much out right now for it. This is Tumbleweed Connection by Elton John. This came out after his self-titled release, and this is before the crazy trek he had, starting with like Madman Across the Water and Honky Chateau and all those other great albums. Kind of a bit of a underrated album. It's a concept album about country and western themes, so really excited to dig into this. Comes in a nice tavern kind of sleeve. Cool gatefold as well. Elton with Bernie. And comes with a very, very nice book, which has all kinds of lyrics and imagery to go with the album, which is really nice. Also looking to expand my Elton John collection, of course, so I thought with getting this thing for essentially, what did I get this for? $12, $13. I figured it was absolutely amazing value. And then it comes in a rather nice polylined sleeve. If I can get it out, that is. There it is. Nice heavyweight black vinyl on the classic DJM label there. It was pressed over at GZ Vinyl, and it was mastered by Sean McGee over at Abbey Road using digital masters that were done by Bob Ludwig. I have some other Elton John reissues that are done in that style, and I'm honestly very pleased with them, so I'm sure this is going to be a delightful listen. And then this is actually an artist that I don't have any records of, but of course I've been aware of his solo work for quite some time. He is the other singer and songwriter in The Raconteurs, and you can guess what that is because I obviously have almost every Jack White release. It is Mr. Brendan Benson. This is his latest solo album, which is called You Were Right, which came out back in 2013. And yes, I did say it was his latest. I decided to play some samples of this on iTunes just to kind of get a feel for it. And honestly, it's in the same vein of the Raconteurs. So I figured, you know, this is another great artist that I can dig deeper into in terms of the solo stuff. Comes in a gatefold sleeve. And there's Brendan there. Comes with a digital download. And then we also have a very nice photo booklet to kind of complement the album. All kinds of nice imagery and liner notes. Very nice stuff. And then on top of that, record comes in a polyline sleeve once again, with some rather nice custom labels there. Very, very nice. and I am excited to give this a listen, and perhaps from listening to this album, my Brendan Benson collection will grow. So we shall see. Brendan Benson, you were right. Okay, so the next couple of records that I picked up were actually from a rather reputable record retailer online known as Acoustic Sounds. Now, Acoustic Sounds is run by Chad Kasem, who also looks after the Analog Productions label, as well as the Quality Record Pressings pressing plant in Salina, Kansas. He's a rather notable figure in terms of the modern-day audiophile market, let alone vinyl in general. But on Acoustic Sounds, it's pretty much a one-stop shop for anything music-related. You get regular Streamline vinyl reissues. There's also a lot of audiophile, marketed stuff like Mo-Fi and Analog Productions pressings, as well as super audio CDs and high-res digital downloads and whatnot. Now, if you saw just earlier, I had gotten the Doors' LA Woman Workshop Sessions LP. And it seemed like Acoustic Sounds was the only reputable retailer that had it. And I came very, very close to getting it from them simply because they had it in stock and they had a good reputation. But they had it listed at like the retail kind of price. It was kind of high. It was like $35. I came close to pulling the trigger on it, but then I saw the Discogs seller have it for cheaper, and the rest is history. But since I hadn't purchased from them before, I was curious to see what exactly they had and see if there was anything notable, because I noticed they would drop some prices on some particular records, I guess just for the sake of getting them out of their warehouse because it's discontinued or they're just trying to make room for other product. So I went ahead and sorted all of like the recent reissues from the lowest to highest price and just see what was there. And came across a couple of things that I am very glad to have in my collection. And upon receiving the package, I was greeted with a very nice sort of catalog book, which pretty much showcases some recent releases that are coming out from Mo-Fi and other labels. Just really nice stuff. That way you can kind of plot your future purchases. And then it even talks about turntables and receivers, cleaning kits, all kinds of great stuff. So I'm going to be very excited to dig into this. And then you even get a little thing in here regarding the Vinyl Vault, which is kind of an expansion on the Acoustic Sounds site where they actually sell off some rather valuable older pressings. So you see there's a Beatles Mo-Fi box set, the Nick Drake box, Mo-Fi Sinatra, Japanese Led Zeppelin 2, all kinds of cool stuff. And then you even get another one here. This is specifically for Quality Record Pressings and Analog Productions, showcasing some of their titles as well. So this is really, really nice. I will be saving this stuff. But enough of the chit-chat, let's get into the records. So the first one I picked up is Van Halen 2 by, you guessed it, Van Halen. This is a Rhino reissue that was done, I want to say, in 2009, 2010. It's not the digital remaster that was done in recent years, although I have the first album remaster from that series, and it sounds fantastic. But this is just a slightly older one, which I believe they used the original tapes, I want to say. I've heard rather good things about this pressing, so I'm very glad to get it. And I think I only ended up paying like $12 or $13 for it. It's really not that bad of a deal. In terms of the tracks, Dancing That Away, Beautiful Girls, you also have Women in Love, Light Up the Sky. You get Spanish Fly, where Eddie Van Halen does his acoustic work. Comes with a printed inner sleeve. Got pictures of the band. And there's Eddie there with the guitar that was buried with Pantera guitarist Dimebag Darrell. Really nice. And then we have the record in a nice sort of heavy-duty inner sleeve, which means that it was indeed pressed at RTI, and it's on that classic kind of white Warner Brothers label, mastered by Chris Bellman, so I'm sure this is going to be an absolutely beautiful sounding record. Cannot wait to give it a spin. And then up next is yet another Reiner reissue from the late 2000s, and this is actually of a band that I don't have any records of. I came very close to picking up an album of theirs back when I worked at an FYE in Moorestown one day. And I didn't pick it up. I ended up getting something else. But I figured with this album, this was a much more feasible option because this album does feature a lot of notable songs that are pretty much well known in the band's catalog. This is ZZ Top Fandango. This is a half live, half studio album. So in terms of the live stuff, you get Jailhouse Rock and the Backdoor medley. And then on the studio side, you get Balinese, Heard It on the X, and Tush. Just absolutely great southern bluesy rock type stuff. My dad has a CD copy of this album, and we would crank this in his car when I was younger, and I really grew to like a lot of the stuff on this, so I thought having it in my collection was absolutely justifiable. Comes with a nice insert here, so you get some artwork on this side, and then you get this really breathtaking photo from what was described as ZZ Top's first annual Texas-sized Rompin' Stompin' Barn Dance and Barbecue, Austin Summer 74, with 80,000 friends. Absolutely breathtaking. Is that the Cotton Bowl? I don't know if that's in Houston, or it might be in Austin. Correct me if I'm wrong. I do apologize. And the record is also pressed at RTI, just as well. And it comes on the Palm Tree Warner Brother label. And this particular pressing was mastered by Kevin Gray and Steve Hoffman. Steve Hoffman is a very reputable audiophile mastering engineer, and for a while, the only Steve Hoffman mastered record I had in my collection was the White Stripes Icky Thump first pressing, which I ended up trading in for an upgrade, which you will see in a later video down the road on this channel. And it was so hard to part ways with because it sounded absolutely beautiful, and just the sheer fact that I had a Steve Hoffman mastered record. But now that I have this, I can say that once again, and I am very excited to have this in my collection. ZZ Top Fandango. Alright, now we have some Discogs and eBay finds. The first one is the one from Discogs, and I saw this listed for a mere price of only $5. Near mint condition, only played once, and I figured I'm willing to take a gamble on this particular record, considering that it is $5 and also what kind of entails with it. This is Brian Wilson, That Lucky Old Son. So this is a solo record that he did back in 2008, and he got back together with Van Dyke Parks. Now, Van Dyke had written the lyrics to what was to be the Smile album back in '67, which was going to be the follow-up to Pet Sounds. Never came out. Big story to go with that. But basically, you kind of flash forward about 40 years later, and they get back together, and they collaborate, and they make this album. Never have heard it before, so this is going to be a first-time listen. Has a nice, very colorful, vibrant gatefold, which looks very nice. Comes with a nice printed inner sleeve here with all the lyrics to the songs. And then we have the vinyl itself. Comes with like a nice orange label. Nice black vinyl. Pressed over at Rainbow. Feels quite good. Looks of decent quality and mastered by Ron McMaster. So I'm sure this is going to be a delightful listen indeed. So I'm very happy to have this. Brian Wilson, That Lucky Old Son. And then we get to the eBay find. And this is one that I was kind of on the search for a particular release that is kind of associated to what is entailed with this. So there is a Genesis bootleg out there that came out recently called The Magic of Time. And it's a bootleg which has all of the Revelation period demos and rough mixes and stuff. All of this stuff is found on the Genesis Archive box set from the late 90s, but they put it on vinyl, and I really wanted to get a copy of it. And I had purchased what I thought I was going to purchase was a copy from MusicStack.com,
And then I got a message from the seller saying, oh, we just sold it a couple days ago at our storefront and it's no longer available. So it's like, okay. And it's this particular bootleg is over 5 years old, so it's kind of hard to come by considering how also limited it is, because I believe it's limited to like 500 copies, so it's very slim to none to find a copy. But I came across this particular release, and it includes most of the demos that are featured on that bootleg. Not necessarily everything, but it's the next best option, which is relatively affordable still to this day. And for what you get, it was well worth the price. I think I ended up paying, I want to say $65 to $70 for this, and so it's really, really good value for what it entails. So this right here is From Genesis to Revelation, the vinyl box set. This was put out by Not Bad Records as part of, I believe it was Record Store Day 2015. So you do get some of those demos and rough mixes and whatnot included in an extra LP within this box set, along with the stereo version of the album as well as the mono version. Now, I've only heard the stereo version and I've never heard of the mono, so that's going to be a real treat. And then you also get 3 7-inches as well, which I will showcase. And also, this is a major upgrade because I did have a copy of this album. It was put out in America as part of like Record Store Day 2013 or 14 by, I can't think of the label. This album has been put out so many times by so many different labels. I think Jonathan King will pretty much license this to just about anyone and he can make a quick buck off of it. But that particular copy that I had has this album cover, so you have just the text From Genesis to Revelation, but it had the name Genesis written in like huge like size across the front, and it always irritated me. I did not like how they did that, because that's not how the original UK version was. It was just the US version, I think, when it first came out officially in the US around the mid-70s. So this one right here is the mono version, and in this particular record you get an insert which has all of the lyrics and the corresponding artwork, which is replicated nicely. Very good stuff. And then it pretty much looks merely identical to the stereo version. And obviously you can tell the difference because there's like a little color code as to which record you're holding in your hands. And then this right here is the singles, demos, and rarities. So it kind of has the gold text there. And so, for example, you get things like Patricia, Try a Little Sadness, She is Beautiful. Those were some of the first demos that they did for Jonathan King back when they were still at Charterhouse. You also get some single A-sides and B-sides and some rough mixes without the string arrangements. So rather interesting stuff here. And then we also have the 7-inch singles. So we have The Silent Sun and That's Me, Winter's Tale and One-Eyed Hound. And then we get this one. This is When the Sour Turns to Sweet and In Hiding. And then on top of all that, we also have a very nice little handy-dandy book, which has an essay written by Chris Welch, very reputable music journalist from back in the day. So you got like a flyer for the album there, and there's also some press quotes regarding the singles. Very nice. There's a young Peter Gabriel there. Here's an old shot of the band. Very, very good stuff. And considering that I was mainly on the lookout for the demos, getting the mono version in general was a major bonus for getting this. And also that that US Record Store Day version that I already have, it's kind of scuffed up a little bit. I think I bought it when I just started really getting serious into collecting, so I thought that getting this box set and all the various bonuses would be an absolute upgrade and an absolutely justifiable purchase. Very happy to have it. Genesis, From Genesis to Revelation box set.
Alright, so now we have some Beach Boys related stuff. This is all coming from one Discog seller which had these two records decently priced. They were $10 each, which is kind of crazy. I know one of them goes for about twice as much, and then the The other one you can pretty much easily get for that price of $10. So first, I was able to get my hands on Love and Mercy. This is the soundtrack to the film that was done based on Brian's life. Fantastic film. If you guys have not seen it, you really got to check it out. This soundtrack is interesting because, yeah, it does use some Beach Boys songs on here, but you also get a lot of soundscapes that were used, like using like Beach Boys multi-track recordings and harmonies and stuff that are featured within the film, along with film dialogue and things like that. So I think this will be a rather interesting listen. And also, I'm a big fan of the film, so you got to have the soundtrack. Here is the gatefold, so you have all the credits here. And then you have a really cool photo of Brian with the actors that portray the Beach Boys. Really nice. And then the record itself comes on kind of like a marbled sort of baby blue vinyl there with a nice vibrant yellow label. Looks absolutely wonderful. I believe this came out as Record Store Day, Black Friday, something among those lines. So it's really nice to see this still available, and also just in general available for a rather low price. And then the other record that I got was the Beach Boys' Surf's Up. So Surf's Up came out back in 1971. This was moderately successful, and that right there is just really great, considering the time frame that the band was in. You know, they were no longer considered hip or in the now, I guess you could say. So this album was really a bold attempt to try to break into that sort of newer hip, I guess, mainstream market, I guess you could say. You get Disney Girls 1957, that's like Bruce Johnston's, finest hour. You have the rewriting of Right and Cell Block Number 9 with Student Demonstration Time. But then again, you also get some very deep introspective stuff from Brian. This was not particularly a good period for him in this time, but you have A Day in the Life of a Tree, which is a rather sad song. Till I Die, which is an absolutely beautiful one. And then you have the song Surf's Up, which was revived from the Smile sessions. This is a Capitol reissue from the late 2000s. Chances are it might be a digital source, but who cares as long as it sounds good. You have a nice insert here with lyrics and all kinds of pictures of the band. And then the record itself on standard black vinyl with the Brother Records, Capitol Records label. Of course, Brother Records was the label that the band had started around the time of Smile. So pretty much most Beach Boys stuff was on that label ever since it started. But yeah, upon getting these two records, I was just on a major Beach Boys kick. So I really wanted to get my hands on some stuff that I was really looking into getting for a while. And very glad that I did so. Love and Mercy and Surf's Up.
So these next couple of records I picked up with my Amazon cashback bonus that I got from my Discover card, and I went ahead and picked up a pretty good amount of records. The first one that I picked up is one of a band that I've been listening to a lot lately. That's not to say that I don't have any records of this band, because I indeed do. It's kind of like a revisiting kind of thing. Like, I got into this band, got the main albums in their discography, and now I'm just kind of seeing what else lies. And when I saw this one pop up on my Amazon list as I was scrolling through seeing what I can pick up, this was a no-brainer, and it just honestly is filled with so many amazing tracks. This is The Who, Meaty, Beady, Big and Bouncy. So this is a compilation which came out back in 1971. It's essentially all the singles that came out from when the band started up until that time. So right off the bat, in this compilation, you get I Can't Explain, The Kids Are Alright, Happy Jack, I Can See for Miles, My Generation, The Seeker, Pinball Wizard, Magic Buzz, Substitute, I'm a Boy. Those tracks right there, I mean, fantastic. And then you also get things like Pictures of Lily, Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere, Legal Matter, Boris the Spider, just all kinds of great early Who tracks. I do love the artwork. You kind of have the kids hanging out here, and then you have the band looking out the window, and then on the flip side, you have the kids looking out the window, and the band's hanging out there. Nice gatefold sleeve. And then the album itself comes on nice 180-gram heavyweight vinyl. This was mastered by Miles Showell using the Abbey Road half-speed process, so I'm sure this is going to be a delightful listen. I'm a big fan of what Miles does in terms of mastering, so I'm very, very happy to have this album, and very excited to give it a spin. The Who, Meaty, Beaty, Big and Bouncy. And then up next is actually a record that I need to kind of sort of get to the next step in this artist's catalog. I'm trying to now get their stuff in chronological order. Just the stuff that I'm missing. I already pretty much have the 70s into the early 80s down pat, complete. Everything is in the collection, but now it's just getting some of the 80s stuff going into the 90s and whatnot. I'm talking about AC/DC. This is Flick of the Switch. This was kind of the band sort of returning back to their roots, getting down to more, you know, rough and ready rock. Production is not as polished on this as it was with their previous three efforts, Highway to Hell, Back in Black, and For Those About to Rock, which were produced by Robert Mutt Lang. And of course, those records just really have a nice polished sound to them, and they were trying to kind of get away with that. So they decided to kind of do a self-produced rough and ready rock album. And this is kind of the start of the decline for the band in the 80s, kind of leading into the 90s. This was kind of the start of a slump, but they definitely picked it up with the Razor's Edge and Ball Breaker and stuff. But yeah, some of these 80s albums from AC/DC are kind of forgetful in some senses. But there are some good tracks on this, though. You get Guns for Hire, Nervous Shakedown, Flick of the Switch is a great one, the title track, Bedlam in Belgium, Badlands. It's an AC/DC record post by Back in Black. You know what you're getting. This particular version comes with a nice embossed cover, as you can probably see right there. Has a nice texture to it. The cover kind of gives off that bootleg kind of vibe, which is pretty cool. And like all AC/DC reissues, you get printed inner sleeves with liner notes and photos. And then the record itself comes on these sort of custom labels for all the reissues. It's all kind of unison with the AC/DC logo there. Pressed over at United, so I mean, and this pressing looks pretty decent overall from my eyes. United is really hit or miss because they are the largest plant in the country, and the quality control can be at times. But this was mastered by Ray Janos, and I'm sure this is going to be a very beautiful listen. All the other AC/DC reissues are fantastic, and this is another great album to add to my collection. AC/DC's Flick of the Switch. Alright, so in this small clip, I'm actually going to be showcasing a brand new release that actually just came out yesterday on Friday, June 7th. There's a lot of good new releases coming out this month, and you're going to see a really good amount of them here in this haul. This is one of the rare occasions that I actually received a new release a day after the release date. Because normally when it comes to like some of the limited bundles and whatnot that are offered from artist websites, I usually pick the cheaper shipping option, and that means I get it like a week later. But in this case, got shipped out from Detroit yesterday, and I got it today here in Jersey at my front door. So that was really, really cool. And this is a wonderful, wonderful record to have. This is the newest studio album from the Silversun Pickups. It is called Widow's Weeds. This is the limited colored version, also deluxe packaging. This kind of comes in like a letterbox style cover with some nice kind of metallic kind of ink printed on there. The standard version looks a little bit different from this. It's very nice and shiny, nice textured cover. The back side here has the track listing here. You can kind of see it has that letterbox look to it. And you can also see that it is indeed numbered. I have copy number 359. It was not disclosed how many copies were made, but I'm going to guess maybe 1,000 to 2,000, maybe on average. I'm not quite sure. Now, the first single that we got from this album was a song called It Doesn't Matter Why, and then the second one was called Freakazoid. I think I listened to a little bit of It Doesn't Matter Why on satellite radio, but I've been trying really hard to not listen to anything else from this album. I want to sit down and just take it all in from the first listen. So once I tackle this, it's going to be worth it because I'm really excited to see what these guys do. They're one of my favorite indie rock bands, and still relatively indie after, gosh, 15 plus years. They put this out on their own label called New Machine Records, which they launched with the release of their previous album, Better Nature, back in 2015. So it's been some time since we got an album from these guys. Kind of comes in a sort of kind of fold out kind of sleeve. We have a digital download, which is nice. And then on to the first surprise, a signed insert, which is pretty awesome. This insert has all of the lyrics to the songs. Not sure if all of the inserts were signed. I would think it would be for like a limited deluxe vinyl set, but this is really, really nice to have. And then on to the vinyl. The first LP is pressed on sort of pink, purple, marbled, translucent kind of vinyl, which looks absolutely beautiful. Pressed over at Palace, which is one of the best pressing plants in the world alongside Europe. So I'm sure this is going to be a very nice, quiet pressing. And then this one here is on like sort of marbled navy blue vinyl. Kind of got flecks of black and white in there. Looks absolutely nice. Really, really happy that I decided to snag this limited deluxe variant of the album, which I believe was maybe only just $5 more than the standard black version that was being offered on their website. So for $5, you get it on colored vinyl, signed insert, and the special packaging. Absolutely worth it. Cannot wait to give it a spin. Silversun Pickups, Widow's Weeds. Okay, so we have another new release, which came out on the same day as the Silversun Pickups album, and it just arrived today on a Tuesday. This is an album that I have been itching to get for quite some time, and this is one that has been worthy of getting a vinyl reissue. It was reissued once back in 2012 for its 35th anniversary, but that was kind of it, and I think it was done in limited quantities, so it was starting to become a little pricey and unobtainable for some time. So I waited around a little bit, and then I saw this getting the Abbey Road half-speed master treatment, so I went ahead, placed my pre-order on Amazon, and I am just so happy to finally own it in my collection. Definitely fills a gap of sorts in my Genesis collection, and it is indeed Seconds Out. What can you say about this? This is one of the best live albums of all time, hands down. This is the last full-length album released to feature Steve Hackett on guitar. There's the infamous interview with Tony Banks where he said that Steve left during the mixing for this record, and so they just mixed him out of it, and that was it. Don't know if there's any truth into that, because granted, Steve is kind of inaudible in places on this, but regardless, this is such a fantastic record, and this is one that has a little bit of a special place in my heart, because as I mentioned a couple times before, I work for a Genesis tribute band called The Genesis Show, and when I started working for them in the spring of 2017, they were doing the sort of Seconds Out period type stuff, so all the stuff from the Wind and Wuthering tour, and essentially played all the songs live from this album. And when it comes to those guys, and I'm not just saying this because I work for them, they have everything down to the T in terms of the arrangements. And granted, when you listen to this record and you become so familiar with it, the way that these songs are done is kind of a blueprint of sorts. So when it comes to listening to this album, it just kind of brings back memories of doing those early shows back when they were doing the Wind and Wuthering Seconds Out type stuff. So it just kind of has a special place in my heart for that reason. Comes with a nice gatefold sleeve with all the pictures. Rather nice. You get Chester Thompson on drums, and you even got Bill Bruford there. He appears on Cinema Show, which is from the Trick of the Tail tour. Now, this edition does not feature the Japanese-style obi strip on the side like all the other Abbey Road half-speed masters do. Instead, I have a hype sticker here, which I believe is specifically made for the American market. That way it's sold within the States. But I believe they did use the same metal parts as the Abbey Road edition over back in England, and I guess you could say the rest of the world. We have some printed inner sleeves on a rather nice cardstock. Get some behind the scenes look behind the show. And then you have Phil Collins there doing the Tambourine Man skit that he does during I Know What I Like. And then on here we have all the road crew. Nice back shot of the stage. And I'll showcase one of the LPs. 2 LP set as always. Replicates the center labels nicely. Pressed over at Optimal in Germany, and this is mastered by Miles Schoel using the Abbey Road half-speed master process. So I'm sure this is going to be such a wonderful listen. I have the Rolling Stones Exile on Main Street Abbey Road half-speed master version, and I'm very pleased with that, so I'm sure this is going to be beautiful sounding. And from what I can recall by looking at the back and the copyrights and such, I believe they used the Nick Davis stereo remix that was done for the Genesis Live box set from the late 2000s. His remixes are great, and I really enjoyed the mix that he did on this album. So, granted, it's not the original mix, but it sounds fine to my ears, honestly. I'm not too picky when it comes to that stuff. But anyways, fantastic live album, and I finally have it in my collection, Genesis Seconds Out. Alright, so now we have some stuff coming in from Amazon.co.uk. Pretty much found out that I can get records from overseas cheaper than what some American retailers are selling them for. So I've kind of been going through and seeing what's pricey here that's cheaper to get across the pond, as they say. So I picked up this one, and this is a gap that is filled in my Iron Maiden studio collection, and that is Somewhere in Time. This came out back in 1986. This was just coming off of the streak that they had pulled off with Power Slave in the Live After Death live album. This has the band kind of expanding their sound palette in a way. You get some guitar synthesizers and whatnot, so it's starting to sound a little bit 80s-ish, as they say. But this is a really great record. Fantastic album artwork from Derek Riggs. And you got all the references to all their like older songs on the backside here. And of course, song-wise, you get the first opening track, Caught Somewhere in Time, which is a really great tune. Wasted Years, of course, that's the hit. Heaven Can Wait is a really good live track. Stranger in a Strange Land, Alexander the Great. Just absolutely amazing stuff. Comes in a printed inner sleeve with a nice picture of the band on this side. And then you have the lyrics here. And then we take out the vinyl, and we have a nice custom label. There's Eddie right there. Beautifully pressed, too, I must say. It looks rather sharp. This was done over at Optimal, and I believe the mastering was by Sean McGee. He did all the early Maiden vinyl reissues, so I'm very, very happy to have it. Definitely filled in a gap for sure. Iron Maiden, Somewhere in Time.
Alright, so I think the rest of these albums in this haul are going to be mostly Amazon.co.uk finds. This is one that I've been wanting for a very long time. It seems like American pressings for this particular album are hard to come by at a decent price. And there was a Discog seller that listed it as Very Good Plus for $20, and I thought that was not bad, but still it's not, a dead mint copy. Very Good Plus is a rather decent rating, but you still want to play your card safe. So then when I saw what this converted to in US dollars with shipping and everything and the reduced price once you place your order, I thought it was absolutely justifiable for picking up for a dead mint copy, and the artist is coincidentally what is on my shirt, and that is The Doors, live at the Bowl in '68. So this is a document which covers the band's show at the legendary Hollywood Bowl over in California, home state for these guys. It's a rather infamous show. It was filmed for what became the movie Feast of Friends, which was done around 69, 1970 period. And it was recorded for a potential live album. Don't know if it was the roots of what became Absolutely Live, but it was recorded. Bits and pieces came out in as far back as like the 80s, but it wasn't the full show. There were some elements in terms of like Jim's vocals and such that were missing and went in and out. So for this particular release, Bruce Botnick went into some multi-tracks and extracted some vocals from different performances and pieced them together to create
a complete document of the Bowl show. So, like, for example, when you listen to Hello, I Love You, the vocal is straight from the studio version. When the music's over, it's pieced from, like, different versions that were done from, like, the Absolutely Live shows from 69 to 70. So it's things like that, but, I mean, we have something. I'm very easy to please. I don't nitpick these things too much. But this is a great, great show as well. The set list wise, you get them doing a large portion of Celebration of the Lizard and, doing, Spanish Caravan and Hello, I Love You, the Backdoor Man medley with 5 to 1. It's amazing stuff. Comes in a nice gatefold sleeve. You have some liner notes from Bruce Botnick. Then you have some recollections from Ray, Robbie, and John. And then we also have the records themselves, which come on the old school gold Elektra labels, which looks nice. And this was mastered by Doug Sachs over at the Mastering Lab. The metal work was done at RTI, and the American version was pressed at RTI. But I believe when they did the metal parts, they just shifted overseas to the Optimal pressing plant, which is where this particular pressing is done at. So there's two different etchings for the pressing plants in this particular record, but considering that it's from overseas, it was obviously pressed at the Optimal plant. So it's essentially the same record that you would buy in the States, except it's just done at a different plant. But then again, I don't have issues with Optimal, so I'm sure this is going to be a rather dead quiet pressing, because, I mean, I've been rather pleased with their stuff. But anyways, a record that I am very, very happy to own, and one that I've been looking for a long time. So glad to finally have it in the collection. Doors, Live at the Bowl, 68.
Alright, another Amazon.co.uk find. This is a fantastic live record, one of the best live albums of all time, and definitely a gap in my Iron Maiden collection, and I'm sure you could probably think of perhaps the one essential Maiden live album to have, and that is Live After Death. This is a record that was recorded during the World Slavery Tour in support of Power Slave. The main album kind of runs across three sides from the Long Beach Arena in California, and then you have a fourth side of the other songs that weren't performed on the main part of the tour, such as like Wrathchild, Children of the Damned, Die With the Boots On, and whatnot. Overall, in terms of the song selection, this thing is fantastic, and just the way that it flows, it's very theatrical in a sense, and of course, this goes hand in hand with the live video of the same name. It looks absolutely fantastic. Great album artwork from Derek Riggs. Nice, shiny, glossy cover. We have the gatefold sleeve there. You have the Mummy Eddie there. Just an absolutely beautiful package. Kind of reminiscent of Kiss Alive. Maybe they drew some inspiration. We have a little booklet here, which kind of is almost like a sort of tour itinerary kind of book. You have all the dates listed from the World Slavery Tour. This was definitely one of the biggest large-scale tours that they had done at the time. Something like 200 shows or something. And it ran quite long. Apparently there was talk of doing a tour to promote this very album, but Bruce almost threatened to leave the band if that was to be the case. We have some printed inner sleeves here, more photos, and then we also have some lyrics as well to the songs. So you can sing along as Bruce Dickinson sings "Scream for Me, Long Beach." We have nice kind of headstone custom center labels there. Very, very nice. And then just for the sake of showing, I will showcase the other LP as well, which has even more photos along with more lyrics to the other songs as well. So absolutely great live package. If you're a metal fan, I would say this is an absolute essential record to have in your collection. And if you're into live albums and you want to get the full live effect, this is a must own. Iron Maiden, Live After Death. Alright, now we have some more assorted Amazon finds. If you can't tell, that's where I get a lot of my stuff. So I had applied for an Amazon store card recently, mainly just so I can use it specifically for Amazon purchases, considering that I use the site so much. So after a while, I got my
Amazon card rewards. You earn 5% back on all your purchases. So I figured I would take the opportunity to use those rewards towards some records. I was really looking hard for what to get because I didn't want to just spend it on whatever something would cost on my wish list. I really wanted to make it worthwhile. And I was looking up records of this particular artist, and I had the black vinyl variant of this particular album on my list, but I saw the limited numbered colored vinyl pressing available as a prime item on Amazon, which is absolutely crazy considering the nature behind the pressing. I went on to Discogs just to see what the value was out of pure curiosity, and it was going for double what I paid. I paid roughly $25 for it, and it's going for $50 right now, so I thought I got really, really lucky with this one. This is Linkin Park, Road to Revolution, live at Milton Keynes. This is a live album that was done back in 2008 from the Minutes to Midnight album cycle. Fantastic show. I had the CD, DVD release back when I was I guess you could say preteen. I was only in middle school when I was really into these guys, and still am to this day. I mean, if anything, this is purely a nostalgia kind of release for me. I just absolutely love Linkin Park's material. This is notable for having Jay-Z feature in on the encore. They did Numb Encore and Gigawatt Faint, which are tracks from their collaboration album called Collision Course. This is the Record Store Day edition, which came out first before the standard black version. This was done, I want to say, in 2016, 2017, somewhere around that time, fairly recently. It is indeed numbered. I have copy number 1848. Comes with a nice gatefold sleeve here with lots of colorful photos. And then we also have an insert. I can get it out. There we go. So we just kind of have like various credits and some audience photos on this. And onto the color of the vinyl. Are you ready for this? Check that out. So it's on red vinyl with black splatter. And this thing is on Amazon for $25. Absolutely ridiculous. I have no clue how they managed to offer this for sale on Amazon, and considering the nature that it's a Record Store Day release, it's just absolutely mind-boggling that they would include something like this available to the mass market instead of essentially the aftermarket after Record Store Day and the flippers and the resellers and whatnot. And you even also get a DVD of the show as well, which is nice. Nice little courtesy thing. And then we have, gosh, I want to be very careful. I will be getting these records out of these shitty paper sleeves. Oh god, look at the splatter on this. It's kind of like an explosion kind of thing there. That looks absolutely sharp. Beautiful stuff. And it also matches the black and gold color scheme of the labels as well. It just looks absolutely great. And I cannot wait to give this record a spin and essentially relive my my middle school years as I listen. Absolutely great stuff. Linkin Park, Road to Revolution. And then the next couple records I'm going to showcase are from Amazon.co.uk. I had received a voucher that I could use towards an order. I think it was like you get the equivalent of £6 off an order if you spend X amount. So I looked into what was offered on the site and what I had my eyes on in terms of what was available overseas that's much cheaper than what it is sold for here in the US. And I am now filling in some gaps and also receiving some upgrades. I had traded in pressings of these two albums in the past at my local record store when I did my, I think it was my first Trades and Finds record store vlog. They were the 2008-2009 Hollywood Records versions. They sounded very junky. And then when I heard the Abbey Road half-speed masters that came out in recent years, I really want to complete the set. And now I'm finally getting the early stuff in that series. Talking about Her Majesty Queen. Got the first two Queen albums here. Here we have Queen 1, or simply the self-titled debut. You get Keep Herself Alive, Doing Alright, My Fairy King, Liar. Son and Daughter, Jesus. I mean, this is just a fantastic debut album. I love old school Queen stuff. It's this stuff that deserves just as much attention as Bohemian Rhapsody and Somebody to Love, We Will Rock You, whatever. We have a very nice photo collage on the back cover there. And then we have an inner sleeve with the lyrics printed on there. And then the record itself comes on nice heavyweight black vinyl. Comes in a polyline sleeve as well, which is a nice touch. Got the old school EMI label there. Pressed at optimal and mastered at half speed by Miles Showell. He's been doing the Abbey Road half speed master stuff as well as regular streamline releases. I cannot wait to give this album a spin, along with the other one that I obviously showed, which is Queen 2. Now this right here is my favorite all-time Queen album ever. I absolutely adore this record. You get Father and Son, White Queen, Ogre Battle, March of the Black Queen, which is essentially a precursor to Bohemian Rhapsody, Seven Seas of Rye, the band's first hit. This is just a beautiful record. Now I love on this new, this came out back in what, 2015 I want to say? The cover. Now in the past there have been variations of this cover where you see where like their heads are. They would kind of like crop it to where it's just their heads and paste it on like a black back cover, and it looks obvious that it was like a cut and paste job. Whereas this version, it looks like just one solid photo, and it looks absolutely beautiful. I love the way this looks. The Hollywood Records version I had in the past had that cut and paste look to it, and it looked like shit. This is beautiful. Nice glossy sleeve, nice gatefold. You can get the boys right there. And then we have printed inner sleeve with lyrics, and you see we have side white and side black. So essentially side white was all the Brian May and Roger Taylor songs, and then side black was all the Freddie Mercury songs. And then we have the same kind of scheme with the labels as well. So you got side white and side black. So I am very, very happy to finally have these versions of these albums in my collection. As I'm filming this clip, I have a lot of listening to do in terms of just all of these records that I have amassed recently. But I think I'm going to find myself spinning these Queen albums a little sooner than I expect to, just simply because I am just so eagerly excited to give it a spin. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Queen 1 and Queen 2. Alright, so today was actually a very good mail day. The first record that I'm going to showcase in this clip is one that I did not see myself picking up. I mainly got this simply because I've been listening to this band a lot within the past week or so. And I was adding the rest of their albums to my Amazon wish list, just whatever was missing that wasn't on there already, because I'm still building my collection of these guys. I clicked on this particular album, and I noticed that Amazon had a warehouse listing for it, used but like new, for $10. And I figured for a like new copy but used, I mean, I'm not one of those guys that needs to buy purely sealed albums. If there's a used pressing out there, I'll go for it. Paying the $10 that it was listed for was a bit more justifiable than paying $30 to $40 for a brand new sealed copy. So I decided to take the plunge, and I'm very glad that I did. And after investigating it, there's hardly any damage to the sleeve. Maybe a small crease on the back, but that's really it. I'm talking about the Monkees, Just Us, or Just Us. It's kind of a play on words. Kind of relates to the fact that the band is playing everything on the record and wrote all the songs. Kind of similar to what they did with Headquarters, which was a rather notable record back then, because to kind of retrack history, there was always kind of a controversy back in the day about these guys performing on the albums, because those first two albums that they did were their vocals layered on top of backing tracks that were cut by session players, and that was under Don Kirshner's supervision. And then what happened was they got fed up with it, fired Kirshner, and then they gained their independence and did Headquarters, and the rest is history. So this album is kind of like a second attempt at that. You get some reworkings of older tracks such as Circle Sky and You and I. And then, of course, all new stuff from the boys. You got Regional Girl, It's Not Too Late, Oh What a Night, Never Enough. It's a rather solid reunion album. This came out back in '96 to coincide with the band's 30th anniversary at the time. Friday Music did this particular vinyl pressing. This was back in 2012. This was the first time that it was released on vinyl. Comes with a gatefold sleeve. You get pictures of the band in the studio and all the lyrics. And then the vinyl itself comes on clear vinyl, which looks really nice. As you can see, it kind of replicates the old label that the Monkees were on back in the 60s, but instead of the label name, it says Friday Music up top. So, very happy to have this. And yeah, like I said, I'm still building my Monkees collection, and I figured this would be a rather good, notable one to have in the collection. So, Monkees, Just Us. And then we have a brand new release which came out today, Friday, June 21st. This has been a highly anticipated album, personally for myself and for a lot of other people. This is The Raconteurs, Help Us Stranger. This is the band's first studio album in over 10 years. The last studio album that these guys did was Consolers of the Lonely back in 2008. So it's definitely been some time since we've seen some new stuff from the Raconteurs. I have been very pleased with what I've heard so far of this. They dropped a couple tracks before the album release, such as Sunday Driver, Now That You're Gone, and the quasi-title track Help Me Stranger. Help Us Stranger is the name of the album. Help Me Stranger is the name of the song. I've been enjoying what I'm hearing, and I'm really excited to spin this. Jack White, like I've said many times, he's the reason why I got into collecting vinyl, and I've always taken a liking to whatever he participates in, and the Raconteurs are absolutely no exception. Nice single sleeve. You get an insert. You have lyrics here on this side and credits on here. And then the vinyl itself, which was actually pressed over at Third Man Pressing, which is located on the premise of the Third Man Records location in Cass Corridor in Detroit, Michigan, where Jack is originally from. And as you can tell here, you get side 1 and then side 2, of course. So this will be a absolutely fun listen, and I am really excited to dig into it. Raconteurs, Help Us Stranger. And then the last record in this clip I'm going to showcase is a complete backtrack release in terms of when it came out. This is one of the best hard rock live albums that came out back in the 70s. There's a little bit of nostalgia linked with this particular record. I'm not the hugest fan of the band, but this album is just absolutely rocking, and I think for any early 70s hard rock enthusiast, this is a must listen and a must own. This is Humble Pie, Performance, Rockin' the Fillmore. Great live album. You get things like Rolling Stone, Walk on Gilded Splinters, 4-Day Creep, and of course the standout, I Don't Need No Doctor. It is just absolutely ass-kicking. And I say nostalgic because back when I was a kid, I would go through my dad's record collection back when it was like in a storage unit somewhere in our hometown. And I remember this record was in his sort of box of albums, and I just couldn't stop looking at it because, like, you have all these pictures here on the inside. So right off the bat, it's like a very visual kind of, artwork style album. And then you open it up and you have all these other pictures and the die cut, holes for the center labels. I used to just stare at this stuff, non-stop when I was younger. And then it was later on when my dad got the CD of it that I actually had listened to it, and I really enjoyed what I heard. You have a young Peter Frampton on this as well, and just it's absolutely amazing stuff. This particular pressing was done by Wax Cathedral back in 2012, and the Elusive Disc was offering this on their site for the sale price of $20. Discounted majorly from the original list price of $35. So it was nice to get it on the cheap. And I have a pressing of Rainbows on Stage from the Wax Cathedral label, and I was quite pleased with how that turned out, so I figured I'd give this one a shot. Pressed over at RTI, comes in rice paper sleeves, which is nice. You get the old school brown A&M label replicated there, and then you have center labels there. Looks absolutely great. No indication on who mastered it, but I'm sure it's done rather well. It's a rather nicely punchy recorded style album. And just to kind of showcase the other one, I'll do so. I kind of have to be conscious now on what side I put the record in the sleeve. That way I can showcase the custom center labels when you open up the gatefold. So absolutely really nice. This is probably one I'm going to have to save for my dad, because he's a really big fan of this record. So perhaps when he's home, I'll play this album with him. Amazing stuff. Humble Pie, Performance, rockin' the Fillmore. Alright, so I kind of indulged in this part of the haul. I got an email from lp.reverb.com saying that Culture Clash Records, which is a record store based in Ohio, was running a 25% off sale on their web store on the Reverb site. So I decided to take a look for myself and see what was there, and I managed to come across some rather nice things. Right off the bat, we have some brick and mortar David Bowie releases. These came out, I want to say, about a year ago, probably. They're still relatively available. They're limited, but to how many copies, it's not really specified. First off, we have the soundtrack to Christiane F. the Kinder von Bahnhof Zoo. This was a film that was done in the early 80s, which is kind of about the sort of Berlin drug scene that was going on in the mid-70s. It's based off of a book as well. David Bowie does appear in the movie, does like a performance bit, and he also is responsible for bringing the soundtrack, which is previously released material ranging from station to station to Lodger. So right off the bat, like with songs like V2 Schneider, that get the German version of Heroes, Sense of Doubt, Warzawa, Look Back in Anger, the song Station to Station. This is honestly a rather solid compilation and a decent overview of what is perhaps my favorite period of Bowie's. Comes with a nice printed inner sleeve. You get some liner notes written in English on this side, and then on this side it's in German. And this particular record is pressed on very nice heavyweight 180 gram red vinyl, which matches the color scheme of the album, which looks quite solid. Mainly down to the track listing alone, I've been wanting this record in my collection. And right price, right time, 25% off. Can't really beat it. So I'm very happy to have it. And then we have a reissue of David Bowie's tracks that he contributed to the adaptation of Bertolt Brecht's Ball. It was a BBC television play that was done in 1982. This comes in a rather nice triple gatefold sleeve. We have all kinds of credits and liner notes on this opening here. And then it opens up again, and we have various photos and annotations from the play. And then we also have a brief write-up on Bertolt Brecht on the back side here. And the record is inside where the credits are taken out. It's a 10-inch release. Has the Regal Zonophone label, which is rather cool. Rather interesting release. I do have these recordings as part of the New Career in a New Town CD box set, so I think perhaps having this vinyl release would perhaps wrap me around this particular record a little bit more, so I'm rather excited to give this a spin and dig deeper into it. And then we have the, as of now, latest full-length studio release from Julian Baker. I just picked up her first album. You'll see it in a future video on this channel. It's a rather special pressing I got. And I'm really been enjoying what I've been hearing of this particular artist. It's called Turn Out the Lights. This is the first album that she did on Matador. Matador is home to artists like Kurt Weill, Snail Mail, just all kinds of great, indie rockers. This is beautifully packaged, I must say. Very nice artsy cover art. You have a poster. On one side you have all of the lyrics. And then on this side we have a nice portrait of Julian as well. And we do get a download code as well. And then we have the vinyl itself, which is in the nice polyline sleeve. Very well pressed and mastered by Ray Janos. So I'm sure this is going to be a very wonderful sounding pressing. So like I said, I'm really enjoying what I've been hearing of this artist lately. So I figured getting the releases while I can at decent prices is the justifiable thing, especially when it comes down to a new artist. And so I'm very eager to see what this sounds like. And then, for the sake of digging just a little bit deeper, I decided to pick this particular release up. I've been aware of it for a very long time. I just never really gave it too much thought or looked too much into it. This is the split EP of Steve Gunn and Kurt Vile. It's called Parallelogram. So on side one, we have tracks by Kurt Vile, which is the main reason why I bought this, because I'm a huge Kurt Vile fan. But then we also have on the B-side tracks by Steve Gunn. Now, Steve Gunn is another Matador artist. I believe he's on Matador. He's another artist on the roster. So it kind of makes sense to put those together onto a split release, kind of as like a primer to anyone that's curious, I guess you could say, into these particular artists. If anything, I did enjoy what I heard of Steve Gunn's stuff, so perhaps this will make me dig deeper into his works. And then in terms of the Kurt Vile stuff, I'm just happy to have it in my collection. This is packaged rather uniquely. There's like a little staple flap here that's in there, and then it opens up, and you have like this sort of designed, like almost like brown paper bag type of die cut sleeve. It's attached to the stapled part on the bottom. You have all the credits there. We have an insert which has the album name, and then we have the vinyl itself. And obviously, as you can tell, that's the Kurt Vile side, and then we have the Steve Gunn side. So a rather interesting release, and really curious to give it a spin. And then this is not really vinyl related, but if I spent like a couple extra bucks, I would have gotten free shipping. So I literally bought this Doors Singles 2 CD set for the sake of getting free shipping. So I'll need it for my collection. Got to be a completist. So there you go. That is exactly what I got from Culture Clash Records in Ohio. 25% off on lp.reverb.com. So to go alongside Queen 1 and 2 is Sheer Heart Attack. Now, I believe I mentioned it in an earlier clip in this haul. I traded in my first three Queen albums that were the Hollywood Records pressings when I did my first Trades and Finds record store vlog. The sound quality on those Hollywood pressings were not the greatest. Once my ears kind of opened to sound quality, I was really yearning to seek out a better sounding pressing, and I've been pleased with the half-speed masters that they've done back in 2015, so that's exactly what this is. Got this off of Amazon.co.uk. They were the only place that was selling it for a rather decent price. The American market is so inflated for these pressings. Excellent album. You get Killer Queen, Now I'm Here, Stone Cold Crazy, In the Lap of the Gods Revisited. You get the little mini epic of Tiedemann Funster, Flick of the Wrist, and Lily of the Valley. I just love how all those songs blend into each other. As always, you get a printed inner sleeve here, all the lyrics so you can sing along. And then you also have a polyline sleeve and the record, which is pressed on 180 gram black vinyl. Got the old school EMI label there. I have a bit of a soft spot for this record. Kind of brings back a little bit of childhood for me, because I remember back when I was a kid, my dad had a tape deck in his old truck, and he would always do this thing of converting his CDs to cassette tapes so he can play them in his car. And I remember this one tape he had. Side A was Night at the Opera from start to finish, and then on the B side
was sheer heart attack from start to finish. So listening to those albums back to back in that order, Night at the Opera first and then sheer heart attack, just brings back a lot of memories, and just, it's how I grew to love those albums. Also, interestingly enough, since we're talking about these, it was just announced as a film in this clip that they were actually going to reissue the studio albums box set, which is what these reissues stem from. So they took the 15 studio albums, cut them in half speed, put them in a nice box with a beautiful hardbound book, all on colored vinyl. And the colored vinyl is exclusive to the box set, whereas the standalone releases available to the mass market are on black vinyl. It's low-key tempting, only because I really want the hardbound book. From what I have seen of it, it's a beautiful piece of publication, but I don't know if it's worth taking all my other half-speed masters that I have, trading them in at my record store, getting cash, and then forking up what's like the equivalent of like $300 to $400. It's rather steep. I don't care really about the colors. It's all about the sound quality in the end. So I'm just happy to have the black, and I cannot wait to give this album a spin. Queen, sheer heart attack. Alright, so we are back at it again with yet another Amazon price drop. This time around, this particular record dropped to $12, and I thought that was a absolutely killer price for this record. I had been watching it for some time. It would occasionally go up and down, and this time around it just kept going lower and lower and lower till it reached around the bottom spectrum of around $12 and some change. And so that's when I pulled the trigger on it. And I'm telling you guys, it's pure dumb luck that this stuff happens, because as soon as I purchased it, it slowly started to work its way back up in price towards $13, $14, $15. So the timing, I guess as always, was rather right. And this particular record is interesting because I am actually not too fond of the stuff that came out within this period in this particular artist's career. But from what I understand, this is perhaps the most notable album since it was the best-selling, and it does feature a lot of hits that can be found on compilations and such, which is how I became aware of this album. And I figured, if anything, this would be a great kind of primer into the middle period of Mr. Elton John. This is Too Low for Zero. This came out back in 1983, I want to say. This was a bit of a comeback for Elton. He got back together with Bernie Taupin, who is Elton's collaborator, so he had a hand co-writing this album, and he also reunited with some members of the original Elton John band, such as Davy Johnstone and some others. Of course, on this you get I'm Still Standing. I guess that's why they call it the blues. Kiss the Bride. You get the title track. It's a rather solid record for Elton. I do love the sort of die-cut sleeve here. As you can see, I'll take out the sleeve and you'll see it just like that. And on this side, we have like that color palette in the middle with all the credits. And then we have all the lyrics on this side. And then the vinyl itself, which is on nice, heavyweight, 180-gram black vinyl. And it's on that Rocket Record Company label there, which looks quite nice. Pressed at Optimal and mastered by Sean McGee, like all the other Elton reissues. So I'm quite confident that this will be a very nice sounding pressing. And who knows, if I really, really enjoy what I hear on this record, perhaps it will lead me to pick up some other 80s period Elton albums. Because that's the great thing with myself at this point as a collector. I'm digging into new albums that I have never listened to before from start to finish. And sometimes, if you're really curious, you just wait around at the right price and the right time. And that's exactly what happened with this record. Elton John, Too Low for Zero. Alas, look who joins me in this clip. The CD player. This is my girlfriend, Sam.
Hi.
We just got back from her neighborhood pool, and I noticed something by my front door. And this particular record I ordered early in June. Off of Amazon.co.uk, and this was kind of the main reason why I started to buy from overseas. And it literally took an entire month to get here, and that's kind of strange considering that I purchased other stuff from there, as you've seen already in this haul, and I received it rather promptly. So
Don't know why I waited 3 to 4 weeks for this, but it is worth it because it is the last piece of my Rush studio collection. And yeah, it's finally here. American pressings for this particular record go for like 35, 40 bucks, and that's for a regular widespread release, it's easier to obtain it for a cheaper price. But it's finally here. I am talking about Vapor Trails remixed. So this album, Vapor Trails, came out back in 2002. This was the band's first album since Test for Echo in '96, and also the first after the band's kind of hiatus after Neil Peart's wife and daughter had passed. So there was a big long gap between releases, but they came back with this album. Lots of great tracks on it. One Little Victory, Secret Touch, Earthshine is a great one. The title track, Vapor Trail, is good. Ghost Rider. I mean, this is a rather decent comeback album. It was remixed back in 2013. Lots of complaints in terms of brickwalled and compression. It's one of those loudness war albums, and the remix is definitely beneficial on this, so it's cool that I finally have it in the collection. As you can see, the artwork is kind of modified a bit.
I love it.
Yeah, Sam loves the artwork on the remix version.
Whoever does the artwork, if you ever want an unpaid apprentice, I would, link in bio.
You'll have to, You'll have to contact Hugh Syme for that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know the artwork was also cool.
It's called knowledge, guys. We have an insert full of lyrics and credits, and then we have 2 heavyweight vinyl LPs on black vinyl. Here it is. It's on that old school Atlantic label there.
I like the colors are very retro.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is how all the Atlantic pressings came back in the 70s.
Sherbet.
A little.
Yeah, orange and green sherbet.
It's watermelon colors.
Yeah, oh no.
Something along those lines.
No.
But it's veered off track. But anyways, this is such a great record to have. I'm so happy to finally have it in my collection, and safe to say that my Rush studio collection is now complete. Now it's off to get whatever they reissue and all the bootlegs. Rush Vapor Trails remixed.
Alright, now to cap this haul completely off, I'm going to be showcasing a record that I just got today. It's the last day of June, and I kind of hinted this early on in the haul, if you've perhaps caught it. This album got reissued alongside another album by this band. I got the first one rather timely, roughly around the same day as the US release date. And then this one, I literally waited weeks and weeks for it to come in. I don't know if there was a delay in getting it imported from overseas or whatever, but better late than never. It's finally in the collection. It is King Crimson, 3 of a Perfect Pair. This was the band's last album that they did in the 80s. Features the classic 80s lineup, of course, of Ballou, Fripp, Levin, and Bruford. Standout tracks, you get Sleepless, 3 of a Perfect Pair, and of course you get the 3rd installment of the Lark's Tongues and Aspic instrumental suite, I guess you could say. This got reissued at the same time as Beats, and as far as I know, they came out on the same day over in, like, Europe, and then they got an American release slated for, like, May, and this one kind of took a little while, as I stated, but it's finally here. And this album, just like Beat, is going to be a bit of a blind listen. The songs that I stated that were on this are the ones that I'm aware of and I've listened to, but as a whole, this is going to be a first. But I have rather high hopes. I did enjoy Beat very much. A little different from Discipline, which is an album that I was first skeptical on, but I grew to really love it. So who knows what this album will entail. Comes in a nice, shiny, glossy yellow sleeve here. We have a little insert, which has all the lyrics to the songs, so you can sing along. And then we have the vinyl itself, which comes on a nice custom yellow label there. Nice 200-gram press as well. And from what I read online about this album, apparently the A-side is all like the commercial songs, and then the B-side is all of the experimental instrumental stuff. So it'll be quite interesting to take this in as a whole, considering that there's 2 entirely obvious different sides to this album. But very excited to give it a spin and add it to the King Crimson collection. 3 of a Perfect Pair.
So I suspect that you took a break in the middle and watched the rest on a different day, but if you're one that sat down and watched this entire thing from start to finish, I don't know how the hell you guys do it. You guys are troopers out there. There you go. That is my vinyl haul of all the records I have acquired within the months of May and June of 2019. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead, give it a like, and subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video, and most importantly, keep the record spinning.